as apparel design students, we have to know how to actually stitch the garments. So, it will be definitely be helpful, even though whether we actually stitch the garment or not, but we should know what type of methodology should be adopted, or what kind of parts of the garment should be utilized for a particular design. In this we have plackets, which are very, very important. These are the finish slits or faced openings in garments, which make putting and taking of the garments easier, and these are designed on all types of garments, maybe bodice or sleeve or skirt, dress, jacket, pant and so forth. And plackets provide excellent fitting, especially in women's garments, and plackets can be of any length or width, and with the blunt, pointed, round or stylized ends. Some plackets have buttons and buttonholes, others may not have even those things. When plackets are designed at neckline, it may end up at neck edge or be extended beyond the neck and become a part of the collar. The measurement can vary to create different effects. And first of all, let us see what are the standards for a good placket. A placket should be made as flat as possible without any puckers or bulges. And a placket should be made as neat as possible, and it should provide sufficient lapping so as to close the opening as perfectly as possible without any gap. And it should be made of the same material used for the garment, except in case of decorative plackets. Matching thread should be used for this. We should also see that there is a correct lapping, and it needs to be followed for men and also women. For men it is left over right, and for women it is right over left. Plackets should be made stronger by reinforcing the beginning and end with more rows of stitches. The length of the placket should be sufficient to slide the garment on the body of the wearer. Generally, the suitable length of the placket in dresses ranges from 20 to 25 centimeters. Larger plackets are required proportionately for children's dresses as compared to elders. Let us see what are the types of placket openings that are present. Many types of placket openings are used for making garments. The choice of the placket opening is dependent on the age and sex of the wearer, the position in the garment, the type of garment, the purpose of the garment and the type of fabric that is used. These can be made in an opening left out in a seam or a slash in a garment. They can be planned to be both practical as well as decorative. And we have a very simple hemmed placket, and it is used in infants' garments. It is not considered as strong placket, as extra piece of material is not used for finishing it. Mark for placket of desired length and make a vertical straight opening. At the end of the slash, make 2 crosswise slashes on both the sides. Turn around 0.5 centimeter to the wrong side and hem it by hand or machine. Overlap the edges of the placket by laying a pleat at the bottom of the placket. Reinforce the bottom by sewing across the top of the pleat. And we have a different variety of plackets called face placket. This placket uses separate material in the form of facing for finishing. It is suitable for front and back neck openings and wrist opening of full sleeves. The edges do not overlap, hence formal fasteners are not used. And coming to the construction of this kind of placket, mark the location and length of the placket on the garment. Cut out facing from the same material or matching material approximately having length equal to ready length of the placket plus 5 centimeters and maybe having a width of 5 centimeters. Mark out the length of the opening on the facing also. Cut the facing neatly on all 3 sides. With the right sides together, place marked lines on top of each other and slash to the point of the V shape, and spread the piece apart and pin the facing along the edge of the placket and curve facing around the V. And stitch the facing to placket using 0.5 centimeter allowance. Start stitching from one side of the V shape, and when it reaches the bottom, keep the needle down and raise the presser foot and turn to the other side of V and put the presser foot down, and then continue stitching till it is finished. This helps in smooth finishing of the placket at the bottom without having any puckers. Iron it and then turn the facing towards the wrong side of the garment. Tag the folded edges into position and iron. Strengthen the opening by edge stitching from the right side. Another one which is used for mostly for the necklines is the bound placket or opening. And this opening is used for making front and back neckline openings. It is used mainly in children's or infants' dresses. And we have to use a bias strip that contrasts with the garment to make the opening more decorative. And cut the opening of the required length and a bias strip twice the length of the opening and 2.5 centimeters wide. Open out the opening and place the right side of the strip to the right side of the opening. Slightly stretch the binding and tack it. Machine stitch and remove the tacking. Make 0.5 centimeter turning onto the wrong side of the strip. Fold over the strip so that the fold touches the machine stitching. Hem through the machine stitching so that the stitches do not show on the right side. These plackets are normally short and are not provided with fasteners. And we have a continuous placket called continuous wrap opening, or it may be called as a continuous bound placket. And in this type of placket, one strip piece is used throughout the opening. It is used in slashes or in seams, concealed in gathers or under a pleat. It is suitable for children's dresses, undergarments, petticoats, cuffs and so on, but it is not suitable on curved seams and also bulky fabrics. Let us see the construction of the placket. Leave the seam unstitched or cut a straight slit as per required length of the opening. Cut a straight strip on grain twice the length of the opening and 6 centimeters wide. With the wrong side facing the worker, open the two edges of the opening. Place right side of the strip to the right side of the opening. Tag the strip into position with the garment, keeping 0.5 centimeter seam allowance and then tapering it to almost nothing at the base of the opening. Machine stitch with care, especially where the garment turning is narrow, for making smooth and unpuckered placket. After removing the tacking, press the strip and turn away from the garment. Crease 0.5 centimeter turning along the free edge of the strip. Fold over the strip, pin and tack into place so that the fold touches the machine stitching. Hem stitch or machine the edge of the strip into the machine stitching and iron it. Refold one side to make it as overlap and the other extended side as underlap. To strengthen and to hold the opening in position, backstitch at the base or reinforce with machine stitches. Another variety of placket is having two pieces and it is called as a two-piece placket, and it is generally made in a skirt or petticoat on the left side of the seam. It is used as a compulsory placket for blouses with full opening. Depending upon the lapping for men and women, one side of the opening is made as extension and the other side as facing. Let us see how it is being constructed. Separate pieces of fabrics are used for each edge. Extend one of these pieces to form underlap and turn back the other side completely to form the overlap. Use the same fabric for lightweight fabric and matching lining fabric for heavy fabrics. For underlap, cut a strip of fabric on grain having length 2.5 centimeters longer than the placket and width of around 6.5 centimeters. For overlap, keep length 2.5 centimeters longer than the placket and width of around 3.5 centimeters. Take the wider strip and place the right side of the strip to the right side of the garment. Pin, tack and stitch the strip in position to the back, maintaining the seam line. Remove the tacking, iron the strip and turn away from the garment. Crease 0.5 centimeter turning along with the free edge and then fold over the strip. Now pin and tack into place so that the fold touches the machine stitching. Hem stitch or machine stitch the edge of the strip into the machine stitching. Remove the tacking and iron it to make it underlap. To make an overlap, stitch a narrow strip to the front side following the directions mentioned now for the underlap. Turn strip completely inside to make it overlap. To strengthen the placket, backstitch at the base. Little more difficult placket is the seam placket. This placket used in fitted upper garments. This is made in left side seam at waist level where the seam is generally curved. The length of the placket varies from 15 centimeters to 20 centimeters. This placket is made in the same way as the two-piece placket, except that this placket has both the edges closed. Following the procedure of the two-piece placket, turn the front side strip completely inside to make it overlap and extend the back side placket to make an underlap. Reinforce the placket at the top and also the bottom. And we have another front placket. It is for decoration purposes generally. This style of placket is often used for front opening on the garment where the placket is made after making a slash. This is generally for only decorative purposes and it depends upon the design of the garment. And contrasting or matching colored or designed material can be used for making the placket. And to construct this placket, mark a line for a placket of desired length along the center front. Mark stitching line that is 1 centimeter away from the center line on either side. And machine stitch along the line to reinforce the corners. Then slash along the control line, clipping diagonally into corners up to the stitching. Cut 2 strips of length 2.5 centimeters longer than the ready placket length and around width of 6 centimeters. I interface one strip to use it for overlap, and to make an overlap, place right side of the strip to the wrong side of the garment, tack it and stitch it so that the seam elements are on the right side. Trim the seam elements and then turn 0.5 centimeter other edge of the strip and fold over the strip towards right side so that the fold covers the machine stitching. Place the right side of the second strip to the right side of the garment on other side of the slash for underlap. Tack and stitch it, strip the seam elements and fold over the strip towards the wrong side so that the fold just covers the machine stitch, and then iron it. Then top stitch close to both long edges. Slip the ends of the bands through to the wrong side. Pin the ends of the lapped bands to the triangle of fabric at the lower edge of the opening and stitch through all thicknesses, or V shape can be made on the right side of the garment. Another important feature in a garment that draws the aesthetics here is the neckline, because the neckline in a dress draws attention to the face of the wearer. It is a curved outline of bodice around the neck. It is not exaggerating to say that the beauty of a dress depends on the shape and workmanship of the neckline. Numerous design opportunities exist in shaping the necklines. It can be done in different ways and styles to get a decorative effect, particularly for ladies' garments. We have round necklines, square necklines, V-neckline, U-neckline, and so on. And these are some of the most commonly used basic shapes of plain neckline. And let us see how we are going to finish these necklines. Proper finishing of neckline in a dress is a paramount to augment the beauty of a dress. A neckline can be finished with a facing, binding, or using a collar. The type of finish chosen for a particular neckline depends on the design of a garment, the fabric used, the figure type, and personal preference of the wearer. As necklines are generally curved, they tend to stretch during handling, so it is therefore necessary to stay stitch the edge of the neckline before garment construction to avoid the stretch. Otherwise, the neckline stretches during stitching and it becomes unsightly after finishing. A row of stay stitching therefore is done at a distance of 0.5 centimeter from the edge of the neckline. To finish the curved neckline, a straight piece of fabric cannot stretch into the curves. So consequently, a bias piece which can stretch as per the curve of the neckline is required. The elasticity of a bias permits it to stretch or contract and thus take the shape of any curved edge, giving a flat and smooth finish. Bias strips of various colors are available in the market, or bias can be cut from the same material of the garment and can be applied as facings and bindings. In case of bulky fabrics, it is better to use a thin lining material instead of the same fabric to make it less bulky. True bias falls on a diagonal line at 45 degrees to the lengthwise and crosswise grains. It has the maximum elasticity, or in other words, it stretches more than any other direction on cloth. To cut the bias strip, fold the fabric diagonally so that the lengthwise threads of the folded part fall parallel to the crosswise threads on the rest of the material. Using a gauge or ruler, measure from the fold to desired width of bias and draw parallel lines. Cut strips along the marked lines and trim off ends along warp threads. To join bias strips, place the two strips to be joined right side spacing and the edges of the outright angles to each other. Shift the top strip 1/4 inch beyond the other so that the sharp points at the ends of the strips project on either side. Stitch a 1/4 inch seam joining the points where the sides of the two strips intersect. Press the seam open and trim the seam projections showing on the right side. And using this, we can finish the necklines and in different styles. And one style is the facing style. This kind of style is used to provide a neat finish to the raw edges in a garment and to support the shape of necklines, armholes, collars and so on. When the edges to be faced is a straight line, the facing may be cut in one piece with the garment section. Usually facings are applied separately. There are two main types of applied facings. One is a bias facing and the other one is a shaped facing. And in shaped facing, it can be of any width, but bias facing should not be more than 1/2 inch wide. Facings are usually turned to the inside of the garment and will not show when the garment is worn. Sometimes facings are turned to the outside of the garment for decorative effect. So let us see how the bias facing is applied to the necklines. So stay stitch the edges of the garment to be faced. Tack bias strip to edge of the garment, right side beginning at a seam. For inward corners to be faced, the bias must be eased and for outward curves it must be stretched. Stitch bias to the edge of the garment in line with the bias piece on top. Trim the seam to 1/4 inch. Clip at curves and turn the strip or to wrong side. Then understitch the facing to the seam, making sure that the facing is not visible from the right side of the garment. Now hem or slip stitch the facing to the garment. When finished, the neckline should not show any type of puckering. Then the fitted or the shaped facing, it is an easier way of finishing necklines with extreme shapes and corners. The bias piece can stretch to a limit beyond which it is not possible to stretch. To finish square or V-shaped necklines or scalloped edges, it is better to cut the facing to the exact shape of the garment edge to which it is going to be applied. Generally, it is cut on the same grain as a section of the garment. It is easier to apply fitted facing than bias facing and is less conspicuous. It is usually cut separately for front and also back. After cutting, the front and back facings are joined with a plain seam. And then the seam is trimmed and pressed open. The outer edge of the facing is finished by turning up the edge and also stitching it. Carefully tack the facing to the garment section and right sides facing and seam lines, center lines and notches matching. Trim, clip and grade seam edges. Turn the facings to the wrong side. Understitch it at the seam and hem or slip stitch the folded edge of the facing to the garment. And another elegant way of finishing neckline is by the use of bias binding, and it is used to finish and strengthen raw edges and to add a decorative trim to a garment. It allows or it shows both on the right and the wrong sides, and it is used to finish not only necklines but also armholes, sleeve edges, front closings, collars, cuffs and also the seams. It can also be used on straight, curved, gathered and irregular edges. When finished, bias binding should have uniform width, that is less than 1/4 inch, and should lie flat and smooth without any stitches showing on the right side of the garment. There are two kinds of bias binding. One is a single binding and the other one is a double binding. In case of single binding, as the name indicates, the binding is done with one layer of bias piece and cut a bias strip that is twice the finished width plus 2 seam allowances. And then first stay stitch the neckline on the edge of the around 0.5 centimeters from the edge. On the right side of the garment, tack the edge of the bias strip to the neckline, keeping the right sides together. Match the seam edges, stretching the binding slightly on the inside curve to fit smoothly around curves. Trim away excess binding to 1 centimeter beyond fold of starting end. Lap this end over the beginning fold. Machine at 0.5 centimeter from the edge using short stitches and overlap at starting point. Slip stitch ends together along the fold. Turn under the cut edge of the binding 0.5 centimeters and finger press. Fold the binding over the seam edge to the stitching line on the underside, enclosing the cut edges. Pin and then finish with hemming or slip stitches. Then coming to the double bias binding, or it is also called French bias binding, and it is generally done on sheer fabrics. So, a double fold bias binding is used in place of a single layer. It is suitable on children's dresses and blouses. The finished width is around 0.5 centimeters and cut bias strip that is 6 times the desired finished width. Fold the strip in half, wrong sides together and press. The stitching is similar to the single bias binding. Stitch raw edges of the binding to the garment on the right side and hem the folded edge to stitching line on the wrong side. So, now we are learning the fundamentals of the garment construction, and because we are all the students of apparel designing, we need to know about this the fundamentals in a garment and the parts of the garment and how to actually design them, make into patterns and also how to stitch them. And so, today we have seen two types of fundamental parts of a garment. One is the placket and the other one is the neckline. Both of them are very important, because plackets should be enough in order to put on or put off the garment easily. We should be much more careful with the children's garments, and also the kind of necklines that we are putting up, because necklines, if they are not done properly, then there is a problem and the whole garment look very ugly and we cannot wear it. And so, we have to take much care, and also when we actually assess the garment, we should see that the neckline is made properly, and even the plackets also should be made properly, and also the length and all other, the width and all other things should be seen, because we have learned how to see the standards of a placket as well as of the neckline.